What is the biggest difference between sex in your 20s and sex in your 30s? Story number 1. Knowing what I'm doing. Listen up, younger guys, some basics when she says, just like that, or don't stop. It does not mean go faster, harder, or anything other than do exactly what you are doing. Do not change it. Now, what's hard about that is when they say things like that it's exciting, just stay focused. Also, learning to find her nerve clusters will take a bit of exploring, which is where hookup culture fails both parties. Then you have to figure out, does she like grinding those spots, stroking, or both, and what pressure and speed and motion. And if you are unsure, just feel for a slightly rough patch on the top side, an inch or 3 in roughly, and do a come hither motion. Most importantly, communicate likes, dislikes, things get a lot better. Story number 2. I'm 35, dating a 27 years old. I tried the pills and all kinds of different things. Eventually, we had this one time where I was really into it. Never happens anymore, really. Can't keep it up, so it's hard to comply. When it's initiated cause, I know it'll just end in disappointment for both of us, and it was the best sex we'd had in years. I'm still not sure what factors were different that day, but I honestly think it was probably mostly emotional reinforcement. Usually she just starts grabbing at me, and there's no romance, so it's hard to get hard. I think that day we actually did some foreplay. Anyways, this has really helped me a lot. Reading all the responses, I figured I was just fucking cursed, never got much action in my prime. It just seemed appropriate that when I was finally getting some, my shit would stop working. Good to know that I'm not the only man who puts importance on the emotional component of sex. Thought that was my problem for a while too. Guess I just have emotional needs that aren't being met, and it's bleeding into other facets of my life. Story number 3. As someone who just turned 30 and has 2 young kids, schedule it. It's not sexy, but we've found knowing that we have sex on a Saturday night means we both work ourselves up for it on the day. Cuddles in the morning if we're lucky, and the kids give us time in bed, comments and touches through the day, that kind of stuff. For us, we found it useful to make sure we looked at the issues we faced, all of which were basically time and tiredness, and dealt with them at source. Hopefully, and probably, we won't need to do this as time goes on, but right now, our lives revolve around having children, and communicating and being open with this has kept our relationship strong. The sex is better now than it's ever been. Also, get a big corner sofa. It's legit better than our bed for sex. Story number 4. 20s, I experimented a lot with different women. To me it was, how freaky can I get with this woman? I really just wanted to say I've done a lot of it. I just wanted to be as much of a freak as possible and fuck as much as I could. 30s, I enjoy the romance more, and I love missionary because being able to make out and look into your partner's eyes is the hottest thing ever. I prefer to take my time, give a massage, and enjoy foreplay first. The more connected and romantic it is, the more enjoyable it is for me. There's just something incredibly sexy about the passion behind making love rather than just fucking. Story number 5. In my 20s, sex was purely lust and fucking. All I was worried about was being hot for him. I never asked for what I wanted, I just did things I thought he wanted. Now in our 30s, we have open communication about what we need and guide each other if adjustments need to be made. It doesn't happen as often, but it's earth-shattering every time it does, and we have embraced our kinks, and sex is so much more fun. It's not about it being perfect every time. It's just about experimenting with someone you love and trust. I feel as though it's being close and connecting with my partner on a much deeper, even spiritual level, as opposed to just fucking. It's so much better. Story number 6. I had a major realization about 6 years ago when I was around 23 years old. Since I started engaging in sexual activity, it was never an amazing experience for me. It was always about reaching orgasm and nothing more. I didn't understand why sex was supposed to be so great or why people talked about it as if it was the best thing ever. For me, it was just a means to an end. At the time, I didn't think of it as being selfish. I thought this was just how everyone experienced sex. If I or whoever I was having sex with reached orgasm, then it was a successful encounter. But if not, then it wasn't a big deal. I often found myself losing interest in the act because it was so underwhelming. Even when I tried to focus on getting my partners to climax, it felt like I was just going through the motions. Looking back now, I realized that this mindset was a problem. It was almost like an obligation to have sex, and it often felt like a nuisance. I had a lot of confidence issues and a warped idea of what sex was supposed to be like, but as I started to unpack these issues and change my perspective, sex started to become pleasurable for me. It's strange how a simple shift in mindset can cause a physical change. Now, in my late 20s, sex is enjoyable all the way through. I should also mention that I am on the spectrum and was diagnosed later in life. This may have contributed to my previous behavior and thought patterns. As they say, if you've met one person with autism, you've met one person with autism. I'm not generalizing, but it's possible that my diagnosis played a part in my previous behavior of not understanding that not everyone thought exactly like me. Story number 7. I would tell myself not to make the mistake of only a stupid young man. When I was in my early 20s, I had met a beautiful woman in her early 40s. She had not much experience in sex, other than the most basic sex, and I didn't have much experience either, but I had lots of great ideas about it, in part because of where I had worked at the time, which was a new magazine in EU about pornography trends and the business. Through work, I had met a famous actor in porno, at least in Europe, and over drinks. I show him a picture of my girlfriend, and he told me that he would love to fuck someone so beautiful, of someone his own age, and I was like, hey, idea time. And I did convince my girlfriend to make a scene with this actor, and he did the things that he was famous for, and after that, I was happy actually, or I thought this much. Like a young fool, I like to watch the videos sometimes, and I was like disassociated from real life, thinking, yes, give it so hard to her up the back hole, and yes, finish in that mouth, and then a few months later, I realized that I have this amazing, beautiful woman who had thinks that she was fulfilling my biggest fantasy. Then I realized that the stuff in the video isn't exactly what I had wanted, but just ideas of what others had told me what to want, and that I might lose a beautiful woman and a beautiful relationship. I'm glad to have realized my mistake when I was young and when she was still okay to deal with me. Now, I just like to love my wife, and sometimes that love is with sex. Story number 8. Lots more choking after 23, lots more kink after 25, and now it's getting fun. I'm hopeful for my 30s and my sex life. The amount of sex is way less, but the intensity and quality is way up. Personal theory, the harder you nut, the better life is. For longer periods of time, bust so much you get that empty gut feeling like you also just had a really big pee. Bust so hard you feel like you got an ab workout.